All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll call to order the meeting, the June 16th meeting of the Land Bank. We have Rich David, present, Tony Fiala, Chris Jeeks, myself, Tom Augustini, Mike Sopchak, and Wendy Hughes. A quorum of the board is present. I'll note that for the record. I think the next course of business, which we have a bunch before us today, is a review and approval of the minutes from the May 12th meeting. I trust that everyone has a chance to review those since the last meeting. Is there any suggested changes to those minutes?
Just one.
Yeah, just one. Hold on. Yep.
Just one.
Yep.
If you look at the attendance, I believe it says that Tarek was here.
Oh, I might have missed that.
Thank
My
you for that.
apologies.
Good call.
We'll correct that.
Okay, any other observations related to the minutes? All right, if not, I entertain a motion to accept the minutes as proposed. Thank you, Mike. Tony, thank you. A second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you. Thank you for those who are attending today. I know we have a number of items on the agenda and probably people interested in the various items. I think it's best that we move on now to the executive director's report. And then we will go to public and community advisory panel comments from there, and then go to the regular business.
Okay.
Rob, take it away.
Okay, as it relates to our rehab projects, the project 27 Columbia Avenue is complete. We have received lead clearance and post-construction radon testing has also been done and is below or is within acceptable levels. The only thing we're waiting on now is the final inspection reports and the certificates of occupancy and completion from the city of Binghamton. Once we have those, we'll be looking to list the home for sale through our realtor at Exit Realty. And I'm hoping that potentially we can list it later this month or at the latest early July. And as we have done with our other sale announcements, probably hold a precedent at some point when we schedule it. We'd be sure to let you all know. So please keep a lookout for that. The project at 5 Tremont Avenue is progressing nicely. And then when that one's completed by Malarkey Construction, hopefully sometime in July, we'll list that for sale shortly thereafter, the waiting period there for 27 Columbia Avenue. We have begun the cleanouts of the 5 rehabs that we've acquired from Broome County. Our cleanout crew is about halfway through the 5 properties, and we've also engaged Delta engineers to begin environmental testing for asbestos abatement, which we hope to then issue sometime there in the near future. Friendly reminder, those 5 properties are 22 Andrews and 115 Bigelow on the east side, 22 Beethoven on the west side, and 90 Evans and 24 Hay Street on the south side of Binghamton. As it relates to our demo projects, we are finalizing the acquisition for the 6 demolition properties from the county. Hope to have those in our inventory by the end of this month. There is a possibility in my recent discussions with the landfill director that they may be able to start accepting ACM material earlier in the fall than they were anticipating, but that's still a little to be decided. My understanding is a lot of the debris from the old IBM buildings is currently actually being trucked out of the area at the moment. So there is a chance. Initially, they're telling us late November, early December. There is a possibility that they may be leaning closer to October at this point. So we'll see how that goes. We plan, since we'll be using Delta on the rehab environmental side, we're looking to engage Keystone Material Testing, our other environmental consultant, for that round of demolitions later this year. As it relates to the former Vestal Nursing Home, county funding was approved at the May legislative meeting, and there are several resolutions before the board today for consideration of that project. And additionally, I mentioned this last month that we have been contacted by several municipalities recently regarding some potential future foreclosure properties for future demolition projects. We'll sure to keep an eye out for future foreclosure lists to see if those properties make it to those lists. And we would be sure to be in touch with Wendy and her team at Real Property on potential projects we could partner with down the road. As it relates to our HDR grant opportunities, our operating grant, we're more than halfway through this year. That grant currently ends at the end of August. We'll be looking to renew that at the beginning of September as we'll have a 1-year renewal option. As a friendly reminder, that's a $200,000 grant that helps cover all sorts of land bank operating expenses, such as the assistant director position, mowing, property security, utilities, legal expenses, accounting, audit, so on and so forth. As it relates to our capital funds, we're continuing to track expenses. We did a disbursement in April that we received in early May. It was a little over $164,000, and we'll probably submit another disbursement request in the next couple of months on some of our added expenses. As it relates to our VRP program, The project at 23 Parsons Street on the south side is completed and has been closed out on our end. 18 McGath Street in the first ward is well underway and shouldn't be too much farther from completion. The project at 7 Carhart Ave on the west side, contracts are being signed. I believe the contractor may have just gotten that back to our CM the other day, but I need to confirm that. And we're hoping to get that well underway here in the coming weeks or days if we can. Bob Chan is well underway at 21 Walnut Street on the west side, and we've had several meetings with him and our CM on that project, and that's progressing nicely. There are 2 resolutions before the board today for consideration. One to award a project at 25 Church Street deposit. We'll get to that shortly. And another one is an amendment to the project at 147 Clinton Street, and I'll discuss that again shortly. We're also working out the details with the senator's office regarding the grant that was awarded to DAR developers for 18 Cary Street. I will say the property owners have been very good with recent communication. Unfortunately, the slowdown right now has been on the state side. Understandably, the state budget was quite late this year, and they just wrapped up their legislative session just over a week ago. I'm hoping to hear back from the senator's office shortly about scheduling another meeting, try to iron out all the details and get that project underway as soon as we can. We've been working on reissuing the RFP for the purchase and redevelopment of 181 Holly Street right down here downtown. As a friendly reminder, that's a project where we're proposing using both VRP funds and ARPA sale proceeds. We're looking to potentially up how much we would offer in ARPA sale proceeds from $100,000 to $250,000. Because for those who remember, we did issue an RFP for this late summer, early fall last year. Unfortunately, we did not receive any responses to that one, so we've been trying to revamp that RFP and try to make it a little bit more enticing to get people to respond to the RFP. So we're hoping to issue that here probably early July, if I had to guess. Moving on to our BOCES partnership. Permits, as we all know, were issued back in April for the city of by the city of Binghamton for the BOCES project. The students are wrapping up their school year and unfortunately have not finished yet the construction of the tiny homes. In discussion with BOCES administrators, it appears that they'll have to work into the fall and probably will finish sometime in late October, early November. With that, we have gone out to bid on the site development for 8 Truesdale, but with BOCES needing a little more time to finish the homes, we're still working through that. Will give us a little bit more time to figure things out. But I'm very hopeful and positive that, these homes, as I've seen, I stopped by one other time recently at BOCES just to take a peek at some of the progress. They are making headway. It's just by the late time the building permits were issued and with the end of the school year coming up pretty much in like a week, there's just not enough time to be able to cram it all in. And they don't really have too many summer students in order to undertake all the projects. Some administrative and housekeeping items as it relates to our assistant director search. We've been working with the county's planning department and personnel departments, and I'm very close to receiving some HCR operating grant amendments through our coordinators at HCR, which we needed to do due to the change in salary and whatnot for the position. The way it's shaping up, I'm hoping that we can list the position towards the very end of this month, if not the very beginning of July. So please be on the lookout. I'll be sure to let you all know when it's posted, but I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks to get that finalized and really get that going. In the meantime, we're in the process of bringing on a BU MPA intern for the summer, and we hope to have them start shortly. We have the background check complete. We've had a couple other paperwork. We're just waiting on the next potential payroll period in order to get them started. As a friendly reminder, the contracts for our auditors and our CMs are up at the end of the year, and I'm planning to reissue those RFPs and RFQs sometime later this summer, well in advance of the end of the year deadline. Last week, I attended the annual New York State Land Bank Association Conference in Geneva. This conference was one day, and unlike a normal conference where you hear a lot of speakers and they present, this was more roundtable discussions amongst land banks, where we discussed best practices, how other land banks are acquiring properties, how they're faring in that department of working with their municipalities on getting access to properties, funding, opportunities for future funding, and other ways in which we can try to maybe work towards some state legislative changes to make things a little bit easier and more efficient for land banks as it relates to any restrictions that we have under the New York State Land Bank Act. So it was a great opportunity to be more interactive with my fellow counterparts across the state. I feel like I learned a lot from them. I shared some things that we do down here that some people found interesting versus how they do things up there. So I thought it was a really good exchange of ideas. And then last but not least, as it relates to our finances, we still have invested our full $1.25 million as set by our cap. Year to date, we've received just over $18,400 in interest, and total since we started our ICS agreement in the fall is a little over $35,000 in investment. And that's it.
Thank you, Rob. Questions on the executive director's report? Okay,
Thank you.
and, yeah, Mike.
Is there any specific thing that you learned that would change any practices that we're doing right now with you, the conference?
So right off the bat, I mean, one thing that's different is, well, one thing I learned very interestingly is no one land bank is acquiring properties from their local government exactly the same. And one thing I shared that I've been very appreciative of is the relationship the land bank has with its county as it relates to acquisition of properties. There are a lot of other land banks that are not as fortunate to have that kind of relationship like we have. And as an example, there are some land banks that, based on the modifications to state foreclosure, that you can donate a property to a land bank if it has gone through an auction 2 times. There is one land bank that so far the only way they've acquired properties is if a property has gone through an auction 2 times. Otherwise, their county is making them go to their auction to buy properties.
What land bank is that has to go through?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. It's one of the smaller rural land banks out in Western New York. Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Just curious.
I don't think it's Chautauqua, maybe it's Allegheny. Off the top of my head, I'm just not sure. But that's one example. The Albany Land Bank mentioned that they have been strictly going to their auction and they've just been buying it at the auction. They have an idea.
And Rob, on that, they're just showing up and bidding, lack of a better word, against other bidders?
Correct. Yes, they're going to their auction and they have a set aside amount of money in their head of what they want to spend collectively and what they would like to spend per property. And they're bidding based on those parameters. And there are some properties that they know going into it, we don't think we're going to get that one because we think the auction price is going to go higher. So I was happy to share with them the relationship we have and how we're currently undergoing properties. And how they're handling, different ways people are handling, the changes versus Tyler v. Hennepin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's all a result of people trying to sort out how to address Tyler versus Hennepin.
Correct.
Yeah.
One thing that I was made aware of as it relates to, the move-in program, while I understand move-in itself only allows for a minimum of 10 parcels, the state is, in some cases with other land banks, is allowing them to use other sources of grant fundings to try a pilot version of move-in.
Tell us
So-
again what that is, Rob.
So move-in is where they do the cross mods. It's kind of like a manufactured home, where it comes in 2 separate pieces, but unlike a manufactured home that's on wheels, it's placed on either some sort of frost wall, slab, something to that effect. While the state heavily is pushing the move-in program, they're trying to entice some smaller rural land banks that may not have access to 10 properties at a time, or ones that are more weary of trying to do that large of a bite of 10 properties to utilize some of their other, whether it be LBI, whether it be, the home buyer development program, to allow them to essentially try a pilot of doing maybe 1 or 2 cross mod style home to see how effective it is and how easy they are to sell those properties.
When you're saying manufactured homes, you're talking trailers, you're not talking modulars, are you?
Well, so they're not
They're not
trailers.
same.
Correct.
They're
It
not-
follows the HUD code, like a
Whether
trailer
it's
is.
Boca code
Right.
or whether it's HUD code.
Yes, but they're not actually on wheels. They're transported on a flatbed, not on its own
Well,
trailer.
both of them are transported.
Correct. But a manufactured home is generally on wheels and you're given a DMV title like you would be a vehicle.
This is not that. right?
This is not essentially that. That while they follow the HUD code for a manufactured home, they are physically craned onto some sort of slab frost wall. But yes,
Not movable.
not movable, correct, once they're fixed. But while doing, some land banks shared with me that while doing it with other funding sources, not necessarily move-in grant program, but one of their other HCR sources, it gives them a little bit more wiggle room as it relates to potential modifications of those homes, whether it's the size, whether it's the number of bedrooms. We're moving, you have a set catalog of
Most
what you
them
can
have the
use.
same floor plan, whether they're modular or whether they're trailers. Same floor plans. Just different codes in terms of how they're built.
Correct. And for some of the more rural land banks, I know some of the concerns that they've had that we would have something similar if we tried to do move in or a build like that in other communities in our county, is that under move in, the state does not give you added funds for drilling wells or doing private septics.
Okay.
Where when some other rural land banks have started using some of their other HCR sources that may not have a set limit on how much they can spend per subsidy to build a home, that they're allowed to use those other funding sources in order to drill wells and do septic systems that move-in doesn't allow for. So where you could potentially place a test run, move-in style home, say in one of the more rural towns in Broome County, and you'd be able to use those funding sources in order to do wells and septics where it doesn't afford you that under move-in. So just some things, just a few small things. I mean, like we spent a lot of times talking about funding. It was facilitated by a former employee, I believe, of Center for Community Progress. Her name is Kim Graziani. She's an independent consultant, but she's worked heavily with land banks across the country. And it was, like I said, different than just listening to speakers all day long. It was very engaging, broke us up into groups and teams, and really had a lot more hands-on. For those of you who were here when we did the MRB group working meeting about the strategic plan, it was very similar to that, but essentially an all-day version of that, where we really took stock in what our land bank does versus what everybody does versus, what may work here but doesn't work here. And I thought it was very informative and very interesting.
Any other questions about the executive director's report? Any updates on the financials that you want to hit?
So everything is pretty simple. I mean, obviously there's not as much as it relates to salary at the moment. As I mentioned, is eventually filling here the assistant director position. We've had a lot for property maintenance. I know at some point I will need to do a finance committee meeting. We didn't do one in March because we had some other potential things coming down the wings, but I'll have to do at some point some budget amendments for some of the added tiny homes funding, some of the acquisition funding we got earlier this year from the county. The changing of the assistant director's salary back to where its base rate is when we go to hire. So potentially July or August, I'll probably be looking to hold a finance committee meeting and then to look at where we are as it relates to our contractual services right now for the year. Property mowing, now that we've acquired 5 properties, was going to go up quite a bit, in the coming months into the fall. So I may need to do a few minor wiggle room, but nothing outside of the ordinary.
Questions about the financial documents as distributed last week? Okay, great. Rob, thank you for the excellent work as always. Appreciate that. Appreciate the report. We now move to the public and community advisory panel portion of the meeting. For those who are here related to particular project that you particularly have on the agenda, I look for instance, at 25 Church. We'll bring that up individually. You're certainly welcome to say something here if you wish, but we'll allow you to say something about that project when we get to it on the agenda as well. As it relates to any other comments about anything else on the agenda or related to the land bank, we invite anyone to come up to address the board for a period of not more than 5 minutes. I'd remind the board and our guests, we're always happy to have guests, that this isn't a question and answer period, but it's an opportunity for you to, what's that? It's not a question and answer period, but it's an opportunity for you to share any comments you have on anything on the agenda. We would just ask that when you come up, we set up a table. Some people may have notes they want to look at. You're welcome to rest them there. We'd ask you to just introduce yourself for purposes of the minutes, and then to address the board for a period of not more than 5 minutes. Do we have any speakers? Would you be willing to go second? Okay, yes. Yep, we'll keep going until everyone who wishes to speak has had a chance. Yeah. Yes, sir.
John, structural embedded conflicts of interest. Bob mentioned how other land banks are structured. And they don't have this kind of relationship with the county. That's because they want an adequate firewall to prevent conflicts of interest. Now, and it's the appearance of conflict is just as good as the conflict in the state that we live in. There's actual conflict and there's potential conflict. So when does conflict of interest begin? Mr. Augustine, you're an elected official, right? This isn't in the town of Union, and I'm talking about the project investor. But your brother's a county legislature, and he voted to send it to you. You understand? That's not good. Mr. Fiala, county planning. What kind of project is out of bounds for county planning? I mean, if I have dust under my bedroom, that might be an issue. Lead paint. So you can't possibly vote on this project. You can't. We have two county employees, one elected official, the chairman, Aaron Martin. And his deputy of what? I don't know, deputy of DMV. There's so many deputies, I get confused. Can't possibly vote on this. These documents, these deeds will go to your office. Abstract of title. You have an embedded conflict. Can't possibly vote on this. This guy here, I took him on last time, Mike Sobchak, the IDA. This project, in any way, shape, or form, erecting a soccer net, anything, goes to the IDA. When does the conflict begin? Does it begin here, or does it begin there? That's the question. But potential conflicts of interest abound. Broome County is not the Broome County Land Bank. And you've got an uncomfortable structure here. And I might add, I don't know this for sure. I don't remember what the final tally was on this vote. Was it a supermajority? Was it a supermajority? And I've also mentioned the fact that economic development announcements and groundbreakers and all this kind of nonsense is structured around election cycles. You all got involved with Sophia Resinelli was running with a property that was in her neighborhood. It was a disaster. I don't know what the particular problems were, but you had to get those pictures out of her. She was running for re-election or election for the assembly. I don't remember. And it was a disaster. I suggested in the past a 3-month moratorium between the election and announcements of a project. Aaron, you're associated with Dan Reynolds. You owe everything to Dan Reynolds. This is an election year stunt. There's no question about it. It is so smelly that it doesn't even belong at the landfill. It belongs to be trucked out of here. So if you vote for this, you are voting for the county being in charge of the land bank. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. Again, Mr. Augustini's brother voted for this. Now he's going to vote on it. Tony Fiala, plan, cannot possibly vote on this under any type of black law definition. And by the way, I apologize to Rich. I put him on the BLBC. I was thinking of that entity with the parking rent is what I was actually thinking of. So, please, so you can't work for the county and be on the county land bank. You just can't do it and then vote on a project. These counties are smart. They want to avoid conflict of interest. They want strong firewalls between these entities. And this doesn't, and they don't want to play politics. So, you got big trouble here, whether you know it or not. And keep in mind, who's the one that talked about the IDA incessantly over the last years? Who's the one? Who's the one that talked about IM3, New York? Who's the one that told you Maine was going to go bankrupt before they went bankrupt? It's like shooting fish in a barrel around here. That's how bad it is. That's how bad. So I would suggest that you abstain from voting, that you resign from this board, that we get a whole new board of people, except this guy, Rich Davis. That we get a whole new board of people that are not county employees, that are not on the county payroll, or another town payroll, or brothers on the payroll, and make this an independent organization, because it's not. It's not.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone? I know we have at least one. Legislator Ryan, do you want to come up? Yeah.
Thank you all. First of all, I want to say I'm Susan Ryan, Broome County Legislator, and I'm here on behalf of my fellow legislators who are in agreement with me on this issue. Legislator Tim Ames, also Mary Kaminsky, Bob Wessler, Aaron Mecha, and Jason Shaw. They asked me to come and speak with you about our concerns regarding this project. Some of you have already heard me, and forgive me if I'm going to be redundant, but it is important. And it has been perceived as political and it's been drawn up into the political world and Bob Joseph has someone every week talking about it. But none of us have been on Bob Joseph, nor have we really, discussed it publicly. We've discussed it with our fellow legislators, with Aaron Martin, and with our constituents, every one of which have spoken to us against the project. I have not against the project, against the price, the purchase price. So again, we support the land bank. I love all the work that you guys do. We support the project. Everyone wants to see this building come down. But it's the purchase price. It is fully 5.5 times the original, the last purchase price by Mr. Anzarud, whatever year that was, of $120,000. 5.5 times is a hill that is too steep for us to climb. Have we paid more than the assessed value of properties in the past? We have. Apparently, the red carpet inn, it was for $600,000 that we paid. When Aaron sent me that resolution, he sent it to all of us. We don't get all the details on those resolutions. We thought that was for the red carpet inn and the accompanying restaurant, but it was only for the red carpet inn. But I will say, the assessed value was $400,000. We paid $600,000. That's a 50% markup. The restaurant, I couldn't find the resolution on that. You didn't send me that one. But I believe if the assessed value was about 200, we paid, I think I heard 300,000. Again, a 50% markup. So it's high markup, possibly. But what we have to keep in mind is that property was worth it. It was on the main corridor of the village of Endicott. It was across from our largest, most prestigious, and most visible event in Broome County. And it was never flooded, never flooded. A small portion of it is designated on the floodplain, about 10%, but it had never been flooded. This one is a very different property. It's quite the opposite. 90% of that property is designated floodplain, 90%. It was entirely flooded during 2011, I think, as you all know, and of course then largely abandoned. It is not in a commercial corridor, and it is not of any commercial value, but it is of value to us, which is why we support the project. We would love to see it come down. So although the land bank does not explicitly require appraisals, I understand that. And we want the land bank to be nimble and quick, like Jack jumping over candlesticks, so that you can act very quickly, purchasing a property, taking it down, not having to go through the rigmarole of city council, having legislature, all that work. But there are times that we are indeed obligated, and that is when, this is very important, when we are using state and federal dollars to complete a project. We have applied for $500,000 through New York State. Hopefully we'll get it. They accepted our letter of intent, and I believe we have a good shot at getting the full amount. That would be wonderful. We are using $200,000 to $300,000 of the ARPA funds, I believe I heard. Federal dollars also a good use of the funding. I fully support that. But again, we are obligated. When I say we, I'm saying Broome County, because even though you are not Broome County legislature, you are an authority. You are a public authority of Broome County. Following the same guidelines, if you looked it up, you are responsible to the office of the state comptroller. That's who you answer to, not to me, the legislature, but to the office of the state comptroller. That OSC has an opinion, 8964. It explicitly explains that when you're purchasing properties valued at $350,000 or more, an appraisal, in fact, 2 appraisals are required. So we're not even asking for 2. We're just asking for one. Would it slow down the project? It possibly could. We asked for it in April. It's now been 2 months. We would have been 2 months farther down the road. But most.
Mrs. Ryan, just so you know, your time is
Okay.
growing close.
Most importantly, it's not about dotting the i's and crossing the t's. It's about doing what's right. This has come to the public attention. It's just good common sense to do what's right. Restore faith and trust in this good authority. And if it slows it down a wee bit, it's worth it. Please consider full appraisal for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Others, yes, ma'am. You please come up, introduce yourself to the board, and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Mary Clark. I live here in the city of Binghamton. And I have to say, I don't often agree with John Solak, but this is the first meeting I've ever been to. And I am astounded by the interconnections that who you all are at this meeting and how there are real potentials for real conflicts of interest. And these are like wrapped into a little ball where you all negotiate with the county and you do this. And I'm not sure our community is well served by that. I've always imagined a land bank to provide services and opportunities for development and for housing needs and for those kind of things that better serve our community that is in desperate need of more housing, affordable housing, not market rate housing, that's serving no one's interest. And it just seems that this circular conflicting group that combines with the county, yeah, it really astounds me. I thought the land bank was much more open with different perspectives, maybe from union, from community people, from, public developers or, private developers. And it astounds me that you're all kind of insiders connected to the county. And that disturbs me. So I have to give kudos to John Solak, which we rarely do throughout our history. But I have to also agree with Susie Ryan, my county legislator. I am really astounded. What's the rush in this? This building has been sitting there vacant and in disrepair for a very, very long time. What would hurt us to do a real assessment? What is the value of the property? Why should we pay some number, and I'm not even sure where that number came from? Does that make sense? Would you just buy a house without making an assessment of like, is it really worth this? And so I think you guys are, rushing this effort for no apparent reason. Why does it have to happen now? What would be the harm to stop, wait, and get a real value of what this property is? So us as taxpayers say, is this a good use of our money? I don't know, because we don't have an assessment of what it would cost. And that seems like an absurd way to do business. And you wouldn't do business like this in your private, business ventures, but you're doing it with our tax dollars. And that deeply offends me. And I'm really astounded by the makeup of this committee. And I think you need to diversify to have other voices, other community voices and other interests on this board. And I think the one person who was on this board is no longer, because he was so frustrated by how the dealings are done here. And I'm really disappointed because I came here with an open mind to see what this is about. But I really think you need to reassess how you do business expand who you are as a board, to have other voices with other interests that aren't so intertwined with Broome County. And for you to behave like any normal person would before they purchase a property. Get an assessed value of that property. And there's no, unless you can all tell me, what's the rush? This has been going on for year after year. Can't we just stop and take time and do due diligence and do our county a good service by spending the dollars wisely?
Thank you for your comments. Other members, other individuals, from the community here who wish to address the board. Now is your time. Okay. We will call the public, and community advisory panel comment period to a close. Thank you for those who address the board. We appreciate that. We will now move on to new business. Starting with, item number 6, Rob, this is a vacant rental, property
Yes.
project related to 25 Church Street LLC. Do you wish to address the board, to explain to the board this project?
Correct. With our
And then we will give the project developers a chance to say a few things too.
Yeah, so this is an application that was one of the earlier applications we received. Unfortunately, based on the initial criteria that we established, because it was outside of the urban core, and it was because it's a larger than a 3-unit building, it received a slightly lower volume of scoring points over our overall criteria. But because we were recently re-awarded, the additional $1.11 million from HCR, the next application that was in our hopper that met the criteria of at minimum 55 points, in this case 70 points, slightly behind what DAR Developers, our last awarded project was 25 Church Street, which is 25 Church Street LLC, which we have Mr. JD Seymour here, one of the property owners.
And Danielle.
His daughter,
Danielle.
and his
Another
wife Jody can't
representative.
be here with us, but JD, Jody, and the Seymour family. I have been in constant communication with them for months. I know they've been very eager and very excited to undertake this project. Our CM at Construction Management Associates has been out there several times. I finally got to go see the property a few weeks ago. I think it's going to be a very good project out there in the Village of Deposit. I'd like to see that we're expanding the program now to some of the rural communities. And while ultimately our CM does anticipate this costing more than the $375,000 that we could award them up to, the Seymours have provided us with proof of funds that they can cover the difference that is necessary in order to undertake the project, we believe. And
In a reminder to the board and to those who are in attendance who may not be super familiar with this program, this is the vacant rental program. It's a grant program by which the state through us assists small landlords in bringing non-occupiable properties back online. And in return, those property owners agree to rent at more affordable rates so that we're increasing our housing stock. I think this is the first project, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, that is outside of what I would sort of consider the urban core, the town of Union, city of Binghamton.
correct, those were,
First one,
this
so
is
we're
the
kind of
first one
excited about
outside of
that.
those two. Yeah, most of our projects so far have either been in the town of Union or the
Yeah.
city of Binghamton. So this is the first one outside of that area.
Mr. Seymour, is there anything you wish to say tell us about your project in a
Yeah,
couple minutes
so,
or?
Basically, you guys explained it pretty well. We acquired the property at Broome County auction, a couple years ago. We actually have a couple of these different projects and we've completed them. My wife and I, grew up in the rural area of Deposit all of our lives, and we've seen a lot of need for housing out that way. And we always looked around, I come from a very poor family, so didn't she. So we understand how it is for people looking for places to live. And we're not looking to get rich by any means. We're just trying to do something that's affordable for people. If you look at any of our other rental properties, we're well under the limits of what's recommended even at the county level for charging for rent out there. But again, we know how it is for people that looks for people for places to live. And we're just trying to do the right thing for the community as a whole. So we do greatly appreciate all the help and support from the land bank on this project. Like I said, we basically had a new roof put on it after we just acquired the property, just to protect what we had, the structure at that point. I have a lot of equipment, my personal use, so I was able to do a lot of the demo work inside the building, outside the demo, having everything ready to go for this project. But we're really grateful and happy you guys helped us out.
If you mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention, actually, you bring up a great point, JD. As it relates to our VRP applicants so far, I will give the Seymours a lot of credit that they have already begun putting in a lot of sweat equity on the property themselves. As you mentioned, the roofing, they have been in constant communication with our CM, and at times they have talked about, I think you guys removed siding, old siding, so they have been very forthcoming of things that they're willing to undertake themselves physically, in addition to the financial add-ins that they're able to put in the project, which I greatly appreciate.
Anything we can do to help out the cost.
This application's been in the pipeline,
Yep.
For some time. I actually had a chance to drive by it, maybe last fall-ish. I mean, this is gonna be, when this is done, it's gonna be neat. It's gonna be nice. We're talking, what, 4 units, Rob, or 5?
I think it's five
Five
minutes,
units.
5 minutes.
Mr. Seymour, thank you. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good opportunity for people in the deposit area to have, more affordable place to live, and, that's a challenge for everyone these days. So thank you for bringing this forward. Yep. Any, questions from board members about this one? Okay. Thank you for being here. We have a resolution before us to authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with 25 Church LLC to utilize a portion of the land bank's vacant rental program funding for the rehabilitation of 25 Church Street in the town of Sanford. Do we have a motion on that? So Mike, thank you. A second. Chris, thank you. Any further discussion? If none, if no other discussion, if you're in favor of this project, please say aye. Aye. If you're opposed to this project, please say nay. If this resolution, please say nay. All right, unanimously passes. Congratulations. Thanks for being here today. The executive director will be in touch. Now all the more involved paperwork, et cetera, begins. So thank you for what you're doing to provide housing in that community. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah. You're welcome to stay if you want. You're also welcome to not stay. We won't hold anything against you. That's it. There's ice cream to be handled. Yes. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you both for being here. Okay. Next item on the agenda, item number 7, is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement with Karina Martinez to utilize a portion of the land bank's vacant rental program funding for the rehabilitation of 147 Clinton Street in the city of Binghamton. This has come before us previously, Rob, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to update the
Yes,
board on this?
Mrs. Martinez came in front of the land bank board in the fall. And she had asked for the initial standard award of $50,000 per unit for 147 Clinton Street, which is a 2-family. So she was originally awarded $100,000. As we began the process to undertake that project, it came to light through some lead testing that the second unit of the building had more lead than we had fully anticipated. And when the recent quote/bids came back on that project, it was originally came back the lowest quote at $119,000. Obviously, she was only awarded $100,000. But because she was only awarded the initial $50,000, she has the option under HCR's program to turn one of the units into the $75,000 enhanced award, which she is now requesting. Unfortunately, she was not able to make it here today due to work constraints. But now she's looking to essentially be the standard $50,000 award for unit 1, the $75,000 award for unit 2, knowing that with that, she has to rent the second unit to upgrade 60% AMI eligible tenants, which she has fully agreed to do. So this is fully allowed under the program, and unlike any other property owner that might have to kick in additional funds, that's when there is no available greater subsidy for VRP, where in this case, she had the ability of now requesting the 75. And that is I've already run that by our grant reps at HCR. They're okay with it. Other VRP recipients are doing similar things. It's come up at we have a weekly call in that we can join on to ask questions of our VRP reps at HCR. And this has come up multiple times, and HCR has said we have no concerns with it.
So she had requested, and we had approved previously 2 $50,000 awards under certain criteria associated with them.
Yep.
She wishes
Yep.
to increase 1 to 75%, accept the further restrictions
Correct.
to rent it even a more affordable
Yep.
rate in order to get the additional 25,000. And that's
Correct.
why they're here.
Yep.
Now with this change. Okay. Any questions about that from the board? we've already reviewed the project. This is a
Correct.
somewhat minor change comparatively. Okay, and if there's no questions or other discussion, Rob, thank you for the great, briefing on that. We have a resolution to authorize an amendment to the agreement with Karina Martinez to utilize a portion of the land bank's vacant rental program funding for the rehab of 147 Clinton Street in the city of Binghamton. We have a motion. Tony is second. Rich, thank you. Any further discussion? If you're in favor of this resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. If you're opposed, please say nay. That carries. Thank you. Number 8, I don't know that we need an executive session today.
Yeah, I put it on the agenda in case the board ultimately decides
course.
to do that.
Yep, that makes sense. Is there any, I don't think there's any pending things that are appropriate probably to cover in executive session. Anybody have a different thought on that? Okay, I think we can then dispense with the executive session to discuss the acquisition of real property. We have discussed the acquisition and negotiations for the purchase of real property in executive session previously. We now have at least one resolution related to acquiring a property. But first, we have a resolution, item number 9. This is a resolution authorizing the executive director to enter into an agreement with the county of Broome to accept economic development program brownfield funding to support the land bank's programs for 2026-27. As far as I can hit this one, if you don't mind, Rob, as it relates to an update to the board, back in May, the county legislature and county executive voted to approve funding to the land bank in the amount of $825,000 to support the acquisition and demolition of a property located at 860 Vestal Road. This property, as one of our county legislators had mentioned, had been the subject of discussion within the county legislature for a couple of months. There was a debate back and forth about that. I attended 2 committee meetings. I attended a session of the legislature to talk more about this. I think it's, reasonable to have different opinions as to whether you think brownfield funding, economic development funding should be used for this purpose or not for this purpose. That's why we have legislators and county executives that vote on that. They have decided via a vote of the legislature and a signature of the executive to move forward with that funding. And so this is the part on the back end that we play to accept that funding. This is not to authorize the land bank to acquire any particular property, but this is the resolution that is related to accepting funds as designated by the county legislature and county executive. I would, as was mentioned previously, I think by Mrs. Ryan, thank you for that. This is funding that similarly has been provided to the land bank before for similar type projects. If you recall, we did 2 projects, 2 acquisitions and demolitions in West Endicott. That is the former motel and the former restaurant across from Enjoy. Those properties were acquired and demolished with a combination of funding exactly the same as this one, which was brownfield funds.
Yeah.
Some funds from the town of Union were involved and some funds from the state. So this is similar to that, which has been done before. And I would open up for any discussion or questions from the board related to the land bank accepting these funds. I'll say, I mentioned this earlier today, I will say that, the county legislature, the county executive, their role is to decide if they want to grant funds for this purpose. Nobody on this board had a vote on that. The 15 county legislators did, and the county executive had a role. We're obviously appreciative for funding that they provide over many, many years. This was ultimately their decision whether to decide to grant these funds, and they have decided to do so. So I'll leave it at that. Are there questions about this resolution? Comments? Yeah, Rich?
If you want.
Oh, I just had a comment. I just want to add on what legislator Ryan mentioned is she's absolutely correct with the 500,000. So folks do know a letter of intent did go in. That was so to ask for what the what the project is supposed to be for. The only part she didn't add on that I just wanted to make sure folks do know, we did apply, that went in at the end of March. And usually we should find out any day now. So she's absolutely correct. A letter of intent of what the county was planning to do with those funds had to be submitted. A letter was received, which I believe I sent in an email to the legislator, and we're just waiting to hear from that. The county has two opportunities: is county infrastructure money, which we've used for a particular housing project, and then there is a pro-housing supply housing infrastructure project. So this falls under specific for county, this 500,000. So I just wanted to add that component.
It's worth noting on the budget, this was a very reasonable question a couple of months ago. The project budget, the source of funds, the $825,000 associated with the brownfield grant. You know, this is occupancy tax, not property tax, occupancy tax funds, which is associated with economic development, brownfield redevelopment, will be associated with purchase of the property, first and foremost. And then a part of that funding will be used towards the demolition, along with the $500,000 respective that Mr. Fiala mentioned, as well as some remaining ARPA funding from the county. So combine all that together, and that covers the cost of both acquisition and demolition of the property.
So,
Yeah, Rich?
these funds here could only be used towards the purchase of the property, of this specific, the Vessel Nursing Home property.
The funds could, not sure if this is what you're asking, the funds could be used for, under the resolution approved by the county legislature, the funds could be used for the acquisition and or demolition of the property.
All right, but just just this property.
Just this property, correct? Yep, just this property.
And the issue about the purchase price,
Mhm.
is that something that should be decided before we make a decision on whether or not we're gonna be accepting the funds?
I think that, I mean, the short of it is that there's a contract that needs to be signed after the approval of this. The county would not release funds to the land bank if we did not have an agreement that was approved with the current owners. So I see what you're asking. I think that there's a sort of a check on that on the back end, because if this board, for instance, was to say, you know, we're not going to approve acquiring 860 Vestal Road, then we couldn't use the funds for something associated with 860. So it wouldn't, we wouldn't get those funds.
Right.
The county would never release the funds to us as a short.
So there were several, and I should say, first of all, it's rare that we get anybody that comes to students.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
So
Yeah.
so thank you for those who are either just coming to watch or coming to speak at it. It truly is kind of a rare treat. So there's been a lot of questions about the purchase price, and the emails that we've gotten, or the comments that have been made, or even public discussion, it doesn't seem that anybody is against this project. And when it came the first time, a couple of months ago, I voted for the project because, I do think it needs to come down. So it all seems to kind of center on the appraisal. And so I think, just speaking for myself, the reason people probably don't want to do an appraisal is because they know what the outcome of the appraisal is going to be, right? The county leadership and others who are in real estate have said it's not worth the price that we're going to be paying on this. And then there's a whole host of reasons why we're trying to justify that. So is there a scenario where we can go back and push the county to just renegotiate or negotiate this price down? Because I don't believe that there's another buyer out there who's willing to pay that amount or more amount for that amount that's been agreed upon, or a higher amount for that property. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's my own belief based on my experience. And, I know there's a lot of discussions about kind of like where the sources are coming from, if it's tax money, if it's not tax money, it's all public money. At the end of the day, it's all public money. It's all public money that's designed to benefit the people in our region. And there are probably other ways that this could happen. And I think a lot of people would be supportive of those ways. And, you know, I haven't heard anybody say that they want to stop this building from being demolished or stop this project from going forward. Even people who are opposed to, you know, some of these things, it's all about, you know, the cost that we're paying. And I think that, you know, I think that's a legitimate point. And if we're saying that we know that the appraisal is gonna come back and not justify the purchase price, I'm not sure what the point of doing the appraisal is, because that's, you know, the appraisal is not designed to be a mechanism to stop the project, right? It's designed to be a mechanism to make sure that we're paying a somewhat, you know, fair or not overpaying too much. And I think that legislator Ryan, you're outlining the differences between the hotel and, I mean, I agree with those, right? I mean, that had enormous potential. I thought we paid less for that myself and when you said that, but I mean, if you got it from Aaron.
900 and something $1,000.
It was the purchase price
Yep, for both of
properties.
you.
between the two.
Yeah,
Yes.
What was the first one then?
it was 600 for the motel and it was $325,000 for the restaurant.
So those are the purchase price.
Yeah.
And this board unanimously approved both of those purchases.
I don't do that, absolutely.
It was like 925, I think, for both properties.
I'm not saying people can't disagree, like, I'm not indicating that one person might see value in a particular demolition project and not in another.
Yeah, no, I just
That's
seem to
reasonable.
recall that I thought we paid less for it, but apparently I was wrong with that. So that's, you got the numbers, so that's what we paid for, that's what we paid for. But I think that had enormous development for the reasons that you outlined. So I guess the question is kind of, you know, where do we go from here? Is there a willingness from anybody to ask the county to renegotiate for a lower, you know, a lower purchase price?
I can answer that.
Question?
The county is not negotiating. This is the land bank, as we've covered before. It's the land bank and its realtor that has been negotiating with the owners for the past 6 months. I would add, I guess, that like anything, right? When we dealt with the red carpet inn, it's a good example, last year or 2 years ago. You know, me personally would love it if just the private owner just gave it to the land bank, right? We just go on about the way, right? I would have liked it in all of the 130 projects that we've done, if someone had just handed us a property. I guess I would sort of say that as it relates to the acquisition, which we don't do that often, but the acquisition of private property, you know, it's reasonable, you know, as a one who's involved in this, either at the legislature, the county, and the land bank, to want those properties for free or very cheap. The short of it, though, is that we're dealing with a private owner, right? So, I mean, I can go to my neighbor and say, man, I'd love to buy your house for 10 grand. They're not going to sell it to me for that much, right? And I may have an idea about what it's worth, right? Like what it's worth, you know, based on assessments or appraisals or whatever, but like they still have to sell it to me. So I would just say that this property, just like the property, the red carpet inn, just like the restaurant, were the subject of negotiations. Now, could a person not involved in negotiations say, man, if it was just me, I would get this for nothing, right? Because I'm just a great negotiator. I think a person could feel that way. I feel confident in our realtors who are experienced and do a good job that they have done that. You know, I guess the other thing I would say is that there is sort of this concept out there, a reasonable one, for people to consider that, you know, we can make money, right, over across the metro. That has a value, that property has a value. You know, we paid 900,000. We spent how much on demolishing it, Rob? Another few hundred
Yeah, a couple
thousand.
hundred, yeah, it was around 200,000 at minimum for the motel and somewhere in the 50 to 60 range
So-
for the restaurant.
Could we sell that property for $1.5 million? I don't know, maybe. I would think probably not, but I would just sort of remind the board that we've done over 130 projects. The intent of the land bank is not to to make money like a developer would, right? If a private developer was looking to buy something, right, and this has come up, they would say, well, I'm not gonna pay this amount for this property because I can't demolish it and build a mall there, right? Or something that's gonna make them lots of money. The land bank steps in when no one else is doing, right? So when we tear down a house, when we take down Christ the King, when we demolish a restaurant, I think the thing that we're considering is what is the public good? Now, could the public good be that the land bank sort of on their balance sheet is in the black on doing the project? Maybe, but frankly, if that was the case, someone else would do it, right? Like the town of Vestal would have done it, or a private developer would have done it. So we're really getting these properties when we're at the end of the rope, when no one else is coming to do them. And so I guess I would just submit to you that from my opinion on it is that the reason we have the grant funds, the reason we have the land bank is to do these projects. They're almost all net negative as far as financial, right? There's no money to be made here. Sometimes those projects relate to rehab properties that we sell in an more affordable way. Sometimes it results in a park going in there, right? We demolished a property, and I think Mrs. Ryan's district currently is in there, a former parochial school, right? We spent $230,000, I think, dealing with that property. Do you know what's there right now? A community garden. Like, I don't know what a community garden is worth, right? Can we sell a community garden to someone? Maybe, I don't know. But in the neighborhood's view, right, we view that as success. We took something that was blighted and we replaced it with community garden or a side lot or a parking lot for a sports field. I think we're faced with that situation here. Do we view that investment of money appropriately to deal with the blight and just have that be the end result? I don't know. It's reasonable to disagree.
No, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I never did I suggest that this was about making money. I
Yeah.
mean, many of the things that you described.
I wasn't addressing you. I was really addressing some of the concerns that have been raised about should we pay this much versus that
I don't
much?
feel that you were.
Yeah.
It's completely fine.
Yeah.
Many of the examples, the types of examples you talked about were things that we did in the city of Binghamton. We demolish property in the city of Binghamton, you do a side lot program. It costs $30,000 to demolish.
You sell it for $100 to the
We sell
neighbor.
it for $200, so somebody can
Yeah.
expand their yard, but.
And that's a good
To
thing.
get rid of blight, et cetera.
Mhm.
I think part of what you're saying, I think is what, you and I are actually saying part of the same thing differently,
Mhm.
and is that we are at the end of the road. There are no developers who are gonna come by and do these things.
Yeah.
So does that justify us paying, if it is us then,
Mhm.
paying that amount of money? Versus, I mean, where are they going to go with it? And also, who are these individuals, as well?
Mhm.
I think I think it's problematic. I think and, this is really the first time anything's come up in the land bank. I never viewed that other hotel project as controversial. I went to the announcement. I was,
Mhm.
pleased to support that. I think that the county leadership, this is my own opinion, speaking for myself, has put the land bank in a bad position. I mean, they could have done this without us, frankly, this particular project. They seem to be setting the parameters and saying, well, you guys, this is a take it or leave it thing. So, like, I'm saying, well, then if it's ultimately up to us, then why don't we go back to the realtors and say, you know what? We think this price is too high. We don't think you're gonna go anywhere with it and try to get a lower price. It would still be more than the appraisal. I just think that when we know that the property is worthless and there's a lot of concern about this amount of money, and I guess where this purchase price came from was the result of this back and forth between the realtors. I think it sets a bad precedent. I think this is kind of a bridge to whatever that saying is, too far to cross for a lot of people, and I'm one of those people.
I've talked to several people. I'm a retired realtor
Mhm.
for over 50 years.
Mhm.
I'm not an appraiser. I have talked to people, and the appraisal on this property is not necessarily gonna be really low. Because you have a building there that if you were to build the building, it would cost you several $1 million. So somebody may buy the building and rehab it. It's a big, big building
Brick,
and, huh?
brick building.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Wouldn't that be a good thing?
huh?
Wouldn't that be a good thing?
What I'm saying is, it's not necessarily the case that the appraisal's gonna come back low. You don't know.
One of the things I would say is that, we've been sort of talking about this since last fall in some form or fashion, but I mean, I guess, sometimes this is like a situation where if you live next to something, right, if you see it every day, right, if you are keenly aware of a particular property that is in this situation, this is very much on the front of your mind, right? I think it's possible that some people have not been aware of this project over time, this property over time. If you live in the western part of the county and you're the thousands of people that go by this every day, and this is one of the things you're thinking about as the entryway to our county, or if you live in the town of Union or the town of Vestal, or even worse, if you live next to this thing and the rats that live there are parking on your front porch, you're like keenly aware of why the timing of this matters. For 15 years, people around this have been dealing with that. I would say this is one that is probably more under the radar than some of the other big projects that we can kind of think of, the big properties, think of maybe that are in the city of Binghamton or in a more, particular urban core. I guess I would just say that even though this may not have been on everybody's radar in the same way, it's still really important. And if you live near this, I don't know that waiting for more time is great. I think that would be the argument of those, it is, because I hear from them. This is the argument of those who are in that part of the county, people who live near it, is that the time is right to address it. I think it's reasonable to say that, people can have different opinions on the purchase price. The county has decided that that is a good use of grant funds. That's their
And the
thing.
county can't use the ARPA funds, right?
County can't use the ARPA funds. The county, I do not have.
We are using ARPA funds, right?
Yeah, we are
Portion
using
of it.
a portion of ARPA funds that the county's already granted to us, but there's not another that I'm aware of, another $800,000 in ARPA funds towards projects like this or any projects. I think
I mean,
those are
I agree with a lot of the points that you made.
delegated.
I think it's just an issue of what is the best way to tackle the problem? Not, is this a problem we should tackle?
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge difference between those two things.
Okay.
Yes, we should tackle this problem for all the reasons that you outlined, and I agree with you on that. I just don't think this is the best way to do it.
Understand. I definitely respect that. Yep. Any comments, other comments or questions about this resolution? Yeah. This is a resolution to accept funds.
It's a very difficult argument where somebody wants you to do an appraisal on the property before you buy it. That's tough. That's a tough argument.
A tough argument to say we should or should not do an appraisal.
You should do an appraisal before you buy a property, period. That's a tough argument.
I mean,
For going forward without the appraisal.
I think that's part of why when land banks were created, there was a big differentiation between what municipalities were required to do and land banks were required to do. The idea that we're sort of the last stop,
Yeah.
and I think you made the
I
point.
understand everything you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to write about. Again, I think if I had a choice, I'd pay nothing. If it was just
If
fair
the
market.
appraisal came in high, you'd have no argument.
Yeah, and there's a difference between can we, or, are we required to and should we, because it's, the right thing to do or in the best interest. Can we amend this to include an appraisal?
Well, not to necessarily accept funds. I think probably
And in a separate motion to do an appraisal?
maybe in the next resolution, that would be appropriate. You could authorize the acquisition of property for 860 Vestal Empire and require an appraisal to be done. I mean, that'd probably be the right place to do that.
I think we
Uh,
want to know whether or not we're gonna get an appraisal before we accept funds or advance any part of this deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to make a motion, I guess, as part of this to require that an appraisal be done, you could do that.
I mean, it could be its own resolution, or would it be part of this?
I'd probably amend another resolution and just make acceptance of these funds, contingent upon, an appraisal being done. I mean, that's not something I personally would support doing,
Right.
because I think that
Okay.
accepting the funds, as a result of a negotiation makes the most sense, but if an individual on the board wanted to make that, proposal?
I will make that motion.
that's
You worded it so well, I don't even wanna, just,
to require an appraisal, as part of acceptance of the funds.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? I mean, I guess I would just say that, as I said before, we've negotiated with the sellers, I think it's okay to disagree about what the price is. We can agree or disagree on that. I'm not sure that the appraisal changes what the seller sells it for, the buyer buys it for. And I don't think I'd support that amendment, but I appreciate you suggesting it.
Yeah.
We have an amendment to require an appraisal, as part of the acceptance of the funds. Do we have a second on that proposed amendment?
I'll say.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Now, any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
I,
All opposed to the amendment, say nay. Nay. Yeah. Okay, so we, in favor of the amendment, are
I have
Rich.
Mr.
and
David, Mr.
Mike.
Popchak, those opposed, Mr. Fiala, Mr. Gigi,
Yep.
Mr. Martin, Mr. Augustine, Ms. Hughes.
Okay, thank you. Any further, discussion about this resolution to accept funds? If not, I'd entertain a motion to move forward with this resolution, to accept funds.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chris, and we have a second from Tony. All those in favor of resolution authorizes the executive director into an agreement with the county of Broome to accept economic development program funding to support the land banks programs for 2026 or 2027. All those in favor of this resolution, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay,
So we have those in favor, Mr. Fiala, Mr. Gigi, Mr. Martin, Mr. Augustine, Mrs. Hughes. Those opposed, Mr. David, Mr. Sobchak.
Okay.
5-2.
that carries. Thank you. Next, resolution authorizing the acquisition of property from 860 Vestal Empire LLC. This is the resolution which lines up with the resolution previously approved unanimously, no, with one objection, last time, I think, from the former board member,
Yes, correct.
to formally
Formally finalize the acquisition of the property for $650,000.
$650,000. Discussion on this resolution, we covered a little bit of it, but we have more opportunity to discuss it.
Same thing.
Ditto, right?
Yeah, ditto.
Ditto, okay. Fair enough. Any further discussion? Then we're looking for a motion on the resolution authorizing the acquisition of property 860 Vestal Empire LLC. Do we have a motion?
I'll
Chris,
make that
do
motion.
we have a second? Tom, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, as like before, those in favor, Mr. Fiala, Mr. Gigi, Mr. Martin, Mr. Augustine, Mrs. Hughes. Those opposed, Mr. David, Mr. Sobchak. 5-2 passes.
That carries. Thank you. Next,
Yep, one
more resolution. This is a resolution associated, we do these typically too, resolution to approve the proposed demolition project located at 860 Vestal Road in the town of Binghamton. Rob, I know you submitted some information about this, right?
Yep, so this is the overall project. This is to include the funding for the two pots of funding for acquisition, both county ARPA funding and the county economic development brownfield funding, as well as combination of the county brownfield funding, as well as potentially the ESD grant, which you should be hearing about any day, in order to undertake the cost of demolition. Obviously, we have a little bit of a buffer there. We don't believe ultimately the demolition expenses will be as high as they are, seeing that the brick can probably be crushed, repurposed, things of that nature, but this is essentially like we'd like to do worst case scenario of potential overall, all included, about roughly 1.5 million.
Thank you. Discussion about this resolution to approve the proposed demolition project, 860 Besser Road, Augusta. We have a motion. Yes, Tony, thank you. A second. Chris, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving the demolition project, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed to the demolition, to approve the demolition project, say nay.
This is solely for the demolition.
This is, yeah, just approve the demolition.
Yeah, so if the board approved acquisition, the board approved acceptance of the funds, just assume that's already done. This would approve moving forward with demolishing it.
Support demolishing.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Unanimous.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Moving on now to old business. Rob, is there any old business that we have before the board?
I have none.
Okay. Then the next normal question is, we're slated to meet,
July
Again,
21st.
July 21st. It's a beautiful time of year to be here. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other items of business to come before the board? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Tony, thank you. Do I have a second on adjournment? Mike looks like he wants to adjourn. Sure. There it is. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. We're adjourned. Thank
You
you.
want me to sign these? Thank you. I have a bunch